r/TooAfraidToAsk. Vegetable_camera5042 says, why are atheists the only people told to have an open mind? I noticed a religious person can be 100% certain that a God exists just based on how strong their faith in God is. But nobody would tell this religious person to be open-minded to the possibility of a God not existing though. And I constantly see the opposite being said to atheists. People telling atheists they shouldn't be close-minded. They should always keep an open mind to the possibility of a God being true. And sometimes it even seems like most people would rather a secular person be an agnostic person, or a not religious but spiritual person, than an atheist. I could be wrong here though. Does this have something to do with people being afraid of nihilism and materialism? Carter Felcom says, I feel like a big reason for this is that religious people, for the most part, the ones you hear most often, tend to be rather opposed to the kind of rationality that would be required for a more open-minded approach to life. They are convinced, with literally negative evidence, that they are right. Fibanaxison says, as someone who has tried to talk about things with my very religious aunt, yes, there is no capacity for an open mind. She still believes being gay is a choice and that Christianity is the only way to God. She's also someone who has no interest in traveling and exploring different ideas. It's so hard. Sapphira Salamander says, the concept of faith central to many religions means you have to believe without the need of evidence and you'll be rewarded. Faith is to have trust in God. You have already accepted the conclusion, and thus the process becomes justified. The possibility of God not existing goes against this belief system. By definition, a religious person cannot consider the possibility. Dad Sander Boyce says, literally, if they are open to God not existing, it would be not having full faith in God. Long Liveth a Spoon says, there's a difference between knowledge and belief. An agnostic theist, for example, wouldn't know there is a God, but believe in one for various reasons. But a Gnostic theist would say no, there is a God. Limber Dog says, we are the only people who demand empirical proof. C3534L says, for a lot of people, being open-minded is a code word for suspend rationality and pretend as if it might be real. They are telling you practice suspension of disbelief, not asking you to listen or consider an opinion or argument. People are open-minded in the same way about ghosts or aliens, but they'll also tell, say, your racist grandpa to be open-minded about their lesbian daughter in an interracial relationship, who is a big Bernie Sanders supporter. They don't mean to tell grandpa to be willing to engage in a debate with said partner. They mean shut up, don't question it, and try to get used to the idea. This isn't the same thing as being open-minded in a scientific sense, as in being willing to be wrong, or be willing to change your opinion. It's that someone has a belief which is based on tradition, culture, and psychology which they're aware is not a scientifically validated theory, and they want you to not criticize or question that belief. r/TooAfraidToAsk. Assistant Citable 323 says, 3 times in my life I have met people that I have instantly hated. They have done nothing wrong. Why has this occurred? To elaborate, I don't mean people who deserve to not be like they were rude or aggressive or racist. I mean you meet them and you almost instantly feel repulsed by them. Hearing them speak is torture. It's happened to me 3 times in life. I have never made it obvious I feel like this, as I know they have done nothing wrong and would hate to make anyone feel bad. I asked my mum and she said it's happened to her a couple of times. She read it's due to a reaction in your brain, but I have no idea if that's true. I haven't seen these people in years, but I know I would feel the same if I bumped into them. Even thinking about them makes me shiver. Adonis Zero says, instinct is your brain coming to a conclusion without showing the working out. Something about them flagged them for hate, but your brain just wanted to push the conclusion at you quickly, rather than step out why you hate them. Assistant Citable 323 says, you know when you say that it made me think of something. I have an older brother who has bullied and abused me most of my life. And these 3 women all had the same chin as him. Maybe that was it? Adonis0 says, can absolutely be something like that. Little_blue says, there is sometimes an inner feeling often called body chemistry where we just don't like someone. Maybe a sixth sense or your mind is associating the person's looks or characteristics with a trauma or just bad memory. In business we tell people that don't make it past their probation period it just didn't work out. I kind of like that explanation for anyone I immediately wish to avoid. You don't need a reason, it just isn't working out between you and them. I've caught myself looking at how some older people, especially women, hold their lips if they are thin tight and no hint of a smile. My instincts are to run away. They may be nice and polite, I just can't stand being around them. It's fine, we're all humans, it would be mathematically impossible to like everyone. Important_outcome_67 says, trust your gut, it's usually right. As a retired detective, this is a hard and fast rule for me which I've inculcated in my kids. There is strong selective advantage to having a half-second jump on your predator/opponent. Mothy1012 says, I've gotten that too. A couple of dudes turned out to be weirdos, later on proven by them overstepping boundaries, would make up rumors, and would lie about everything. A few girls would have this effect on me, but I didn't want to tell my husband, because I didn't want to come off as jealous or whatnot. I couldn't understand, but I kept my distance. All those girls either tried to get husband fired because their BFS were up for the same promotion and would lie to the main bosses about my husband's performance. Another one was creating rumors amongst our friend circle which made everyone upset at everyone. I felt like I had spidey senses, honestly. My husband knew I held something against these specific people, but didn't know why. Me either, lol. And then they try to frick us over and now we know why. Sometimes your brain just picks up on certain things. I usually trust my gut, but sometimes I do be dummy tripping. r/TooAfraidToAsk. Sammy_B_ says, how does genitalia work for people who are intersex? Marking NSFW just in case, but IDK how else to ask this. So if you were intersex in some way that affected your body into not like growing either a penis or vagina in the typical sense, what exactly is there? I mean this out of genuine curiosity and I'm so sorry if this causes any harm, but like, if someone, for example, had been born with Y chromosomes, but their body had prevented them from growing a penis, what would actually be there instead? Just to clarify, while the example only states one situation, I do mean this in a more general sense for anyone who's intersex. Also sorry if I flared wrong. Delicious Brilliant 67 says, I can only speak for my own personal experience, but I was born with the intersex condition mosaic Turner syndrome. For me, this means I have a uterus and vagina, but no functional ovaries. Instead I was born with streak gonads, a useless mix of ovaries and testes that were removed when I was a baby because they almost always become cancerous. I have to take estrogen and progesterone pills in order to have a period, which I started at 14 to start puberty. I also had to take growth hormone shots from 3 to 14 because of this, but I'm still short as shit, lol. Winter_arrival 6991 says, lots of different conditions can lead to people being intersex. There isn't just one intersex condition. For instance, there's a condition called androgen insensitivity syndrome where people who are XY aren't sensitive to testosterone. So they don't physically develop in the way males typically do, and some are completely female in appearance. They just don't have female reproductive organs, ovaries, uterus, etc. because the Y chromosome prevents them from developing. There are chromosomal differences. For example, people who are X0 have Turner's syndrome. Some are born XY, called Klinefelter syndrome. And sometimes people just don't develop in the typical way and have ambiguous genitals, even though they are otherwise physically normal. iLikadota5 says, intersex is a catch-all for unusual situations. That means it's possible to have both sets, one set, partial sets, sets that exist but don't function, or anywhere in between. Or no sets. C. Epson says, this answer became very long. If you want, I can send link to where they explain all of this in a not only better way, but more scientific and detailed way. PLS, do note I'm far from any form of expert on this. I'm only a person who likes to collect information about as much as I can. Intersex is a spectrum, a relatively big one at that. Variations don't only appear in how one's genitalia looks like, but also chromosomes and internal organs. Some intersex people can be identified as intersex at birth and some don't show any signs until puberty. There's over 30 medical terms for specific combinations of intersex traits. Here's some examples of different types I found: XX salt wasting congenital adrenal hyperplasia, SWACAP, basically a baby with XX chromosomes, and Ca has uterus and ovaries and genitals that may appear visually different. This may include having a large clitoris, short vagina and/or larger or different labia. Androgen insensitivity syndrome, ACE, which That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.